us at 45 so that everyone has a chance to like have a break and everything before the meeting. Okay.
Good.
So
Thank you.
I have these guys.
Hmm.
Okay. They're squash goggles, like legit for squash. Okay. So much more comfortable. I find it does hurt my ears. So I'm going to have to find a way to deal with that when my days are longer. Right. But I've been wearing them when I do the assessments. And if you put it far enough down your nose like this, it does not fog.
Okay. Yeah, I also have anti-fog wipes that I use because I wear glasses usually, but I have contacts.
So these are great. They're super good. Honestly, I got these probably at like Sports Experts or something, but you could probably find something similar on Amazon, so you don't have to go to a store.
Yeah. Okay. Not my to-do list.
Like,
I have a possible spare pair that I got off Amazon if you want to try before you purchase.
Yeah, that'd be great. Actually, just trial it.
I'll bring them for you next Wednesday. Send me a text. Shoot me a text in case.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. So let me pull up the PowerPoint. There it is. All right. What's the button I push?
Really quick question. Zones of regulation. How young can you start, in your opinion?
So we're going to talk about that today a little bit. You can do pretty young, depending on how you present it and how far you feel like going with it, right? Like you can see this one with the Winnie the Pooh characters, right? This one here has superheroes, so appealing to a different audience, per se. The other one that you can think of too is the characters from that movie. The one I talked about it last time. What was it called?
Inside Out.
That's the one. And so you can put the characters for Inside Out. I'm sure you can find it. I probably didn't include it. I don't think I did. Yeah. So the zones you can probably do, I think the youngest I've talked about it was like a 3-year-old, right? And I really just did green. I didn't really go into blue. I did more like green, yellow, and red. And I did it a lot more like red light, green light, right? Because they know that game. So we talked about it as a car. And I said, wow, but I paired like, you look like you're in the green zone. Your body's organized. Or, oh, you look like you're in the red zone. Your body is not ready for this game, right? Like super simple. And then when I wanted to talk about strategies to put in place, I didn't really talk about matching them with a color. I worked more from the bottom up in the sense of doing squishes or drinking water, chewing something. And I used, this gets our body more organized. Your body's in the green zone now. Super simple.
Okay.
I found that helped. And then more around, 4 into 5 and 6, you can really get into it a bit more. And then the elementary ages are great for this kind of stuff. Okay, now hold on. If I do this, you guys can still see that, right? Okay, yes. Okay, I'm looking to pull up some of the zone stuff for you because I want to actually go into it and I have a bunch of it on my computer. Okay, so the zones of regulation, because I think, we did belly breathing last time. Okay, so when we talk about the zones, there's a whole book, obviously, that you can look through. At the clinic, we have a binder with all of the printouts in the order. We also have the different cards for introducing each of the emotions, as well as, if you look here, you've got, right, your blue square, the circle, the yellow slow down sign, and the red stop sign, okay? We have these all cut out and laminated. So they're really good tools for introducing and teaching the emotions. One of my favorite ways to do it, and I think I explained this to Yas last week, I would go on the platform swing, right? So that's the square one that rotates. You can also do this on the glider swing, right? If your child can only really handle linear, I've done both. And I pick out the really common emotions in each of the zones, right? Maybe 3 or 4 of each, depending on the attention span of the child. And then I put them face down on the floor around the swing. And then in each of the corners where they can still reach it, I'll put the blue square, right? The green circle, the yellow diamond, and the red stop sign. And then the child, while moving on the swing, needs to pick up one card at a time for the emotions. They look at it. If they can't read it, you talk about it. Or if they can't figure out what it says, you talk about it together. And then they have to match it to the zone that it's supposed to go in. And you can even put the poster where they can see it as kind of like a support to help them. And the act of learning them and matching them this way is super fun. They don't think they're working, right? But it really helps you to get an idea of what they know and understand, and it helps them to see how many emotions they know. You'd be surprised at how few emotions our kids know. They're big on the happy, sad, mad, right? Like those are the big ones. So they're not necessarily picking up on frustrated or annoyed, right? Versus mad. Frustrated versus, angry, that kind of stuff. And those are the subtleties, because frustrated is yellow. That's the sign, right? When we're frustrated, we're worried, we're kind of getting excited, but we're not overexcited yet, right? Because that's the other thing. It's not always a negative emotion. Sometimes we get pretty excited and then we get hyperactive and we're like way in the red zone because we can't do the activities because our energy level is too high. So it's not that we're too mad or too frustrated or too angry or mean, right? It really is that we're too happy and they can't focus. So that's also in the red zone. So those are the ones that I like to highlight, like the ones that are most common. The blue zone. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you explain like frustrated, or do you just bring it up like
no,
I don't know what for? Okay.
Especially frustrated, because I find a lot of our kids live in frustrated, right? They can't do what is expected of them. They can't keep up with their class. They don't understand, their friends don't understand their way of thinking. They're never comfortable in their body. It all leads to frustration. And so what we normally, it's frustration and worry are the two ones that I find the most common in the yellow zone, right? And those are the ones that usually bring us to mad, I guess anxious versus worried, right? Like really anxious and out of control, right? So those are the ones that I find the most common. There will be others for sure, but those are the ones I see the most often.
And how do you verbalize that? Would you give them an example of it?
I give them an example, right? So sometimes I feel frustrated and I often use me first, and then I see if they will just spontaneously verbalize something as opposed to putting something on them. I find that's a really good technique. I make up stories about myself all the time. It's amazing how many things I have done, right? That are the same as the kids have done. But you know your kid and you know kind of what they're going to experience. So find something similar. So if it's a child that can't find a pair of pants that's comfortable, right? I'll say, well, it's kind of like in the morning when I can't find anything to wear because it doesn't feel good, right? After I tried on 2 or 3 pairs of pants, I started to get really frustrated that I can't find anything that fits nice and comfortably. And then I get really mad at the pants. And that's when I get in trouble, because usually, and we'll talk about getting in trouble, but frustrated, tie it to something that they often experience, right? If it's a fine motor kid, you're like, when I was a kid, a lot of my kids could tie their shoes. A lot of my friends could tie their shoes, and I wasn't able to tie my shoes. And I used to get really frustrated when I tried and it didn't work. And the kid would be like, me too. I'm like, yeah, that's frustration. You're not really mad yet. You're just frustrated. But when you throw your shoe, usually that's when we get mad, right? Although don't give them ideas. The other super important differentiation, one of the reasons I like the zones and the way they explain it, but I find that the color system can get really skewed from school, okay? Because at school, a lot of them will have in their agendas green and red for good and bad, right? Super common. I had a green day, I had a yellow day, I had a red day. But it's the whole A. They say the red day, okay? But there's no way he was bad all day. He probably had a few moments of difficulty, but they've put it all together as one bad day. So the poor kid feels like he failed the day, as opposed to having, made mistakes and then having the opportunity for repair, which he won't feel like he had those opportunities, right? Like it's a little bit too black and white versus zones of gray. And when you talk about the zones, make it really clear to the children that all the zones are okay. So many of them think that red is terrible, right? And as soon as you're in the red, you're going to get in trouble. And you really have to talk to them and say, guys, I get in the red zone too. It's expected to be in the red zone sometimes, right? So if I worked really hard on my homework and then what's a good example? You could say your dog ate it, but if my brother ripped it afterwards, I would for sure be in the red zone. I'd be so mad that I would be in the red zone. And that wouldn't get me in trouble. I'm allowed to be in the red zone. But if I punched my brother because he did that, then I would get in trouble. So it's the things we do when we're in the zones that get us into trouble versus being in the zone itself. And it's a big differentiation for a lot of kids. They don't think of it that way. Does that make sense how I explain that?
Yeah. The only thing I wanted to ask, like, I don't know if there's like a script or something in the zones of regulation book, just because like I'm trying to like figure out a way to explain it to a kiddo if it's the first time they're hearing about it, but I don't want to like be too wordy. So I was just curious to see if you had like.
I don't think there's a script. How I typically do it when I introduce it is I talk about lights. So I'll say, guys, when you're driving a car, when you get to a green light, what does it mean? And they go, it means go. I'm like, exactly. So green means go. When we're in the green zone, it means we're ready to go and do whatever activity we're doing right now, right? Because in our head, we're thinking, well, the green zone fluctuates. Green for soccer is very different than the green zone for reading a book, okay? Right? Different energy level, just equally green because it's what we want to be doing. Then I say, what happens when you have a yellow light? And then you'll have the kids like, oh, you have to slow down. I'm like, exactly. And then you have the kid that goes, you have to speed up. I'm like, well, let's talk about that later, right? Kids tell it everything. And so the yellow light means slow down. So when we're in the yellow zone, it means we have to slow down, just like the yellow light. And then what does the red light mean? And they go, it means stop. I'm like, exactly. The red light, just like the red zone, means stop. And then more than 50% will say, but there's no blue light. They say, nope, there's no blue light. If there was a blue light, it would be the area where we don't have enough energy to be in the green zone. So that's the way I explain it, right? It's when we're sad or tired or sick. Mm-hmm. So we don't really feel like playing, but we're not in the yellow or the red.
Right.
It's that simple.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. And we should have that written somewhere, but I haven't really found a different way to explain it. I find that works, so I keep going back to it.
Yeah.
Okay. And so these are just like cute little pictures to help you, and you can find pictos for so many of them. Okay. So many things on the internet. But when we think about the zones, so what I'm going to do is kind of pull up a few of the handouts. So hold on. And it's pretty easy to photocopy them because they're all in black and white in the book. And we have them in French as well. Okay, guys? Perfect. So here, let me pull this up. Share screen. So a good example is our information about the zone. So you should definitely read this because this is what I give to families to take home.
Perfect. All right.
So if they take this home, the parents know the language to use, right? It's important to note that everyone experiences all of the zones. The red and yellow zones are not the bad or naughty zones, right? It's just something that are expected at one time or another. So this is really important for families to understand and say, don't punish someone for being in the red zone. Make sure it's very clear that you are getting in trouble because you punched a hole in the wall, right? It's okay that you're in the red zone, but we shouldn't have punched a hole in the wall. We should have gone to one of our strategies, right? And we should be able to talk about that later. So I usually hand this out to the parents, and I use this to help me understand the language and how to explain it. And then reproducible B is it's the glossary. It's all the words that we use. These words are going to be really helpful for you guys. Expected behaviors and unexpected behaviors. Okay, these are two of my favorite social thinking terms. The book, The Social Detective, is great for explaining these. I recommend that you guys read The Social Detective. Okay, we have it at both of the clinics, English and French. So an expected behavior is a behavior that gives people around you good or comfortable thoughts about you. Like, how awesome and clear is that? It's totally neutral. It's not you're being good, you're being bad. It's expected. And I'll often say, oh, that's really unexpected if I'm surprised by something. I'm not going to say, oh, you did something bad. You did something really unexpected right now. And unexpected behaviors give people uncomfortable thoughts about you.
So do kiddos understand that concept of empathy?
Yeah, they really do. I mean, ASD, they understand it when you teach it. And they might not apply it to themselves, but they'll understand it when I apply it to me, right? And I verbalize it. Okay, because at first they're not gonna, it's not like they're gonna say, that was expected, right? I'm the one saying it to teach them the terminology and the action or what they did that really makes me feel comfortable or uncomfortable right away. And then the size of the problem is a whole other thing that we can talk about. We've got binders for each, like at each clinic, about the size of the problem. And I really like the detective book. I often read that with the kids when we talk about the size of the problem. So all of these are things that you have access to at the clinic. So we won't go into them, obviously, but I want you to know where to find them. It's really good, neutral terminology that you can use. And then the reproducible C, right? That's the feelings, the emotions that are in each of the zones that you guys have printed and laminated already. Okay. And if I look, I have.
Would you recommend doing these? Like, I have a kiddo I want to go through these with because emotional regulation is the top priority. But they're a community kiddo and they're not very good in English or in French.
Yep.
So do you think it would still be worth trying to do it with these cards?
Yep. Do you have a parent there helping with translation?
I think she'll be there. I had my first session with the kiddo today and I couldn't really tell how much of what I was saying they were understanding because they were just like, weren't giving me verbal replies at all. So
don't get weirded out by it. They love coming. So they're going to be super happy to be there. It's way better than school because they sit all day. It's so hard. But they're also happy to be there, and you're gonna learn a bunch of Yiddish words real quick. You pick up on the important ones. Like you just do. I know so many of them now. But you're also using communication through visuals and body language, right? Like showing and imitating and seeing what they want to do and what they indicate. Because a lot of the times I've had parents say, "Oh, you speak Yiddish." I'm like, no, but I understood what they meant because you can put it in context. That makes a huge difference, right? You can figure out what they're kind of saying based on the context, how happy they look or how sad they look, or what they're reaching to do with their hands. And you can really make an educated guess on what they're saying.
Right.
But for these, what I would do is you can kind of see, like I would definitely pick the very obvious ones, right? Very obvious.
Yeah.
Tired, very obvious. Like depressed and hurt kind of look the same.
Okay.
Exhausted. They all look the same. So I wouldn't necessarily pick those. I would pick sick, tired, sad, like the ones that are super obvious. Same for a lot of these, right? Like good, calm, appreciated, those faces all look the same. Especially to a kid on the spectrum. 100%, there's no difference in those faces to them, right? This is different. This is different. These two are not different.
I mean, you show me that and expect me to know that it's appreciated. Or like calm, like I won't ever know that. Like
unless you can read it. Exactly. So you pick the obvious ones to learn. And like I don't know all the verbs in Yiddish either. So I don't know if all of these things are verbalized.
Terms in Yiddish?
Yeah. Right. So talk to the parents and see if they can help you. But I've done it like with a community child in Yiddish, but the mom helped me verbalize it. And like the child understood a little bit of English, or no, he did French. Actually, we did French for him, but he was obviously more comfortable in Yiddish. So mom would express everything that he didn't quite understand.
Perfect.
And then what I want you guys to be able to do, like once we get past this, right? Like if you look at eat, you've got this that you can hand out to a family. Okay, super easy. And I don't have all of them on my computer, right? But there's different activities that you're eventually going to get to as you work your way. And so honestly, I've never done like a course on the zones. I literally learned by doing the zones with a kid. You just need to be one step ahead of the kid. That's all. You know what I mean? Like you don't need to know all the zones. You need to be one step of the kid that you're doing it with. That's all. And so if you're, at just before this, then you're going to learn for the next session, what's reproducible H, which zone should I be in, right? Times when it's expected to be in each zone. And so we often draw a picture, or if they can't draw a picture because fine motor is an issue and you don't want to create that as a problem, you do it, or you have them talk about it and you write things, right? So you match it to the level of the child. Obviously you wouldn't do this with a 4-year-old. right? Maybe what I would do is I would say, okay, let's act it out, right? Show me what it looks like. And I would take a video and show it to the kid. Right? There's so many ways that you can make this work. And then when you get to the, never do the
actually
bingo,
really interesting.
PS, never do the bingo. It's just silly. Oh yeah, there is an inside out one. Check this. Right, desk and zones of regulation charts. And so you've got all of these and you've got my tools that they can be put on the desk, right? What zone are you in? I could send this to you if you guys remind me. So they talk about the zones. This is something else that can be put on the desk, right? So it's just different ways of presenting it. And then here are different strategies. So you can print this and then they can put it in their tools, 1, 2, 3, with their name on top. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you'll basically go through all of the worksheets to see. I don't like that one. Do caution
Do
triggers.
you always go through the whole worksheet? Like,
Nope.
or
I
like,
pick and choose
like
based on what a kid's
good.
gonna do.
Because like I'm like I don't think I'll ever get my 4-year-old to go through that, but I think he would
No.
definitely benefit from like
The
being
concept.
zoned a bit.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
do an age appropriate level. So if you're like, this isn't going to work for my kid, right? Like I said, like, oh, I made videos instead, right? Or maybe I will make a video or ask the parents to take videos at home and then we'll talk about it and say, this was a time that, what do you think? Were you in the red zone when this happened or in the yellow zone, right? And have them guess. It helps, right? And then they have a bunch of worksheets that I don't have on my computer, but it's about strategies and tools.
It's actually an excellent idea. So I could be like, okay, can you send me a video of Sean, let's say, when he's happy, that you probably they always have when they're like playing around. Can you send me a video of him when he's a bit more upset? And then they could take one, and then you could be like, where were you on the? Okay, cool. Thanks for setting up my session for me.
There's so many ways to do it, right? It's going to really come in quickly. Let me just see. I think this is the toolbox one that I wanted. Oh, no. You just have to look through it. So many of them are easy, but there's really well set up worksheets in there. So have a look through it and pull them as you need. Okay. We'll go back to my PowerPoint. I'm going to share that with you guys.
How do you know whether they understand the concept?
You'll see it in, well, you watch their facial reactions, right? And can they play the games that you guys are doing? A lot of them will understand it really well when they're regulated. So in your session, when they're well regulated, they've had a good night's sleep, they're fed, they'll tell you all about it. So many of our kids they can quote it. But in the moment of meltdown, don't ask them about it. And say, oh, what zone are you in, right? While the kid's going, this is so stupid, right? Like, no. Just know they'd have no cognition at that moment, right? Half of your brain shuts down when you go into meltdown. You're not going to reach them on a cognitive level. You're going to reach them on an emotional or sensory level. That's when you go right into the squish. I've definitely just picked up and hugged a kid when they were having a meltdown before, right? Or squished, obviously that's super hard right now.
Appropriate?
It
Could
depends.
you, not COVID aside, if the kiddo it would accept it, can you pick up a kid? Because it's happened to me, like I had a kid right now, 5 to 6, and he was not leaving. He was done. He was like just like not leaving. He was running into every room, and at some point I just wanted to pick him up and be like, okay, we're going.
Yeah,
he's really totally small. I could get away with it.
And like you know which families are not going to freak out about stuff like that, right? Like as you get to know them. But no, I've had like 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds who are the run and lose control kids, and I've definitely picked them up, sat them on me, and said, we need to take a deep breath right now. Right? And I'm like, breathe into my hands, and I'm trying to push, like I'll put my hand on their chest or on their tummy, and I'll say, breathe, I need to feel my hand move, right? Or I pick them up and I kind of throw them in the bean bags, and then we make it into a game. You can totally do it again within normal means, like it just like as you would with, a niece or nephew in play. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's it. I just wanted to know because like,
yeah.
I don't know, like his family isn't even there, to be honest. Like it wouldn't make a difference.
No, but your kid too, and you'll know the ones like,
yeah,
especially the one that maybe you've picked up and then they've gone, no, no, right? And you're like, oh, your body wasn't ready for that. No, just don't even get mad. Just say, I'm sorry. I thought I was helping, but your body wasn't ready. And usually the kid will like stop screaming and be like, thank you, or just say, no, it wasn't, right? And they get all upset. But it's all in the way you present it. So I'm 100% the first to own when I've messed up. So I'm always saying like, it's totally my fault. I'm really sorry. And kids aren't used to that. So sometimes it shocks them into stopping whatever bad behavior they were doing. But also that concept of holding space, right? So if you see Sam, you could talk to her about one of the kids she did it with just after we did a Kim Barthel conference. And the kid was just, having a nice meltdown, losing it. And she sat down next to him and was like, this is a really hard time. I'm here for you. And the kid was like, what? And they kind of did their thing, and then they calmed down, and then they were ready to move on. So she didn't have to berate him. She didn't have to bribe him with other things. She didn't have to talk about the zone. She just held the space and said, I'm here when you're ready. And the kid came naturally. So that relationship that you're going to build with the child is more than half the work, right? You are automatically regulating these kids. So talking about the zones, it's great because it gives you a common terminology to use, a common language or vocabulary, but it's almost more important how you present yourself in the zones, right? Making sure that you are regulated, while at the same time being able to know what works for that kid. Because each time that you get them to feel organized and better in a session, they're going to feel more connected to you. They're going to realize that you bring happy feelings, right? The senses that they feel with you, they feel good. Why do you think they love coming back? Like, we've got cool toys, but that's not it, right? They like us. And it's funny how much they like us, guys. They talk about you all the time outside of it. And they remember you. I talked to a parent today because she emailed, because a kid that I saw, I must have stopped seeing him 3 years ago, maybe 4 now at this point. Like, it's been a long time. He started high school this year. It's been a long time. And he's a disaster. So like super high functioning ASD, sensory, and just complete emotional wreck with going back to school after no school for 6 months, emotions plus, and not allowed to get outside, like just everything. It's like the perfect storm for this kid to melt down. And I said, I brought up to him, maybe we need to go back to do a little bit of occupational therapy. And he just like stopped and was like, we can go back to see Miss Stephanie. I love that place, right? But it's the place and the person. And it's been 3 years. It's not like they talk about me all the time, right? But he knew who I was and how good he felt when he was there. That's what you're looking for. That's the best way I could explain it. That's what you're looking for. That means that you've got a connection, you've got them feeling good when they're there, and then you can make those suggestions, and then they can do it at home, right? And then they can do it in a moment of stress. That's the next level. Because to do these activities when you're in the green or borderline yellow is one thing. To do those activities when you're in the red zone, a lot of our kids can't access that by themselves. We need to educate the adults around them to help them provide the strategy to bring them down into the yellow. Then maybe we can get the kids engaged a little bit in doing it themselves, and then back into green. And then when they're in the green zone, that's when you can verbalize it and talk about it. Okay, you're not going to have any luck talking about it when they're in the red zone. Don't even bother. It's not going to happen. You hold the space and you provide them with the bottom up big sensory stuff that feels good and regulating. That's the best you can do. And then
when they're in red, you just wait. You just go.
Yeah, like either you hold the space for them and say like, I'm right here for you. That's it. Like, this is really hard. Like super, super simple statements like that. Or you say, but we need a water break, or you need to drink from a straw. That'll help. So simple, right? Don't explain. I think it'll help you feel better if you drink from, like the kid, you've lost the kid at, I think. Give them the water, right? Give them the beanbag, right? Or you get next to them, and if they're like really melting down and you think that even just saying, I'm here for you isn't going to work, well, you bring a beanbag over and you start punching the beanbag next to them. They might come and join you. And then they're going to start to feel better. And then maybe you can get them into the beanbag and do a big squish, right? And you're going to slowly bring them back with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So we keep on using the strategies that they would use to get sorry,
Mhm.
this house is always very loud. We encourage the families, like if they ask us if we're teaching the families, we encourage the families to keep on trying to use strategies when they're in the red zone to get them back. However, try as much as you can to get them in the yellow zone because it's
Yes,
much harder once they're already in the red.
exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly. And it's an education for some of the parents. Some of them never look for the buildup, right? They just notice in the red zone because they're busy. And I get it. I'm a parent. Like, I'm trying to wash the dishes, make dinner, deal with the baby, and I've got the toddler going, yucky caca, right? And I'm like, oh, you need to go to the bathroom. And my hands are wet, and the baby's screaming, and like that's just you're in your red zone, and you're not able to pick up on their yellow. Okay, and it's okay. And when I talk to parents, I'm very clear about that. I will say, and sometimes that's okay, guys. Sometimes a miss is an okay, because that's the best we could do that day. And parents need to hear that. They need to hear that it's okay that they mess up. All right. So that's a lot of info on the zones. What's our time? We have 5 minutes left. How does this happen? Okay. Mindfulness. Right? So mindful posing, the Superman, the Wonder Woman, you could talk about things, right? Like this pose is practiced by standing with the feet just wider than the hips, fists clenched, arms reached out, stretching the body as long as possible, right? So it's just using the body to get a little bit better organized. And often when we're doing that, we can practice breathing. We can use like clearing our head, but you're using your body to get into the pose versus lying down or sitting. The mindful jar. These are just ideas, guys, but it's stuff that we can kind of pull in. I know at Point Claire, we don't have any Utrama yet, but I have the plastic containers to make them. Kinza, we're going to talk it. I'll try to make that as a project for you. Like you see this guy over here. So we have these at Point Claire, right? They're so cool. And there's a specific
we have them
mix.
in plain water bottles.
Yeah, they're in, what kind of water is it? Like Voss, VOX or something like that. Like Voss, VOSS. Anyway, you cannot get the plastic Voss water bottles in Canada. I've never seen them. You can order glass ones. That's not very useful in our field. So I get them when I go to the States. So I literally we drank them, and I never buy water bottles anyway. We drank them, and then I brought empty water bottles in my suitcase because I'm weird. I'm a total weirdo. So I've got like 4 of them from the last time we went to Florida, and I want to make for Point Claire and for Laval because they are really good. Right? You turn it upside down and you watch everything come down, and like I feel calm watching them, right? You can use it as a timer. So for some kids who don't transition well, I did it for one kid who had a hard time with transition. So I used it as our transition bottle. And so what we did is every time we were going to switch to a new game, we would turn it, we would watch it, we'd take some deep breaths, and then we'd move on to the next game. So it was kind of like a moment to get over the activity we just did and get ready for the next one. But I paired it with a visual, and it worked. I just made it up. It was great at the time. It worked super well. And so, right, there's all these phrases, and obviously if you can watch the recording, you can read all this stuff because I don't want to go into it too much, but you can talk about it in different ways. Okay, but I love the visual. Safari walk is a really cool way. You can do this inside and outside, right? So the activity turns an average everyday walk outside into an exciting new adventure. And part of it is just taking your kids out of the moment, out of the being upset, right? Out of all the busyness of the day. So this is something that you could send parents to do. Super fun, giving them ideas, okay? Toys supporting mindfulness. I love these guys. So we have all of our squishy toys, right? We've got these like drip ones. We have a couple of them at each of the clinics. Liquid timers or the water droplets. You've got kaleidoscopes. Spinning tops are really fun. Dominoes, right? Placing all the dominoes and pushing them down. These are all things that are they're rhythmic and repetitive and calming. They don't tend to excite us. So these are things that you can pair into your strategies, right? So sometimes it isn't a big strategy with a squish. Sometimes it's giving them something like this to do to take their mind off of things and just come back. Obviously, we always go to the breathing too, like we talked about last time. So here are a bunch of resources. Okay, what I can do is I could send these to you so you guys can remind me, or they're here so you can always push pause in the presentation and just write it down. And here are a bunch of books. We have Calme et Attentif, comme in Grenouille in English and in French at both of the clinics. We have What to Do when You Worry Too Much. This is a great book, super great. Yoga Pretzels we have. And these are a bunch of other ideas that I've heard are good, okay, that we can look into. Tools to share with parents, right? All children benefit from orienting to nature. That's why we do Nature Club. Nature is calming, just in general. Talking about animals, doing animal walks, being with animals, interacting with people, activities where they experience competence. I love that one. Okay, so many of our kids don't succeed throughout the day. They work really hard. They have a lot of failures. It sucks. And so giving them activities, the just right activity where they do succeed, right? They're able to do it. They get to that point. It boosts up their confidence so much and helps them to feel so good about themselves, which in turn lets you be better regulated, right? That frustration piece from always failing brings us into our yellow zone real fast. Even before we try an activity, we have that perception that it's going to be too hard and we're already in the yellow zone. So we are already not ready to do that activity, which is crazy when you try to explain that to teachers. They're like, yeah, but they didn't even try the activity. I'm like, no, but they have enough experience in failing at those kind of activities that they wouldn't even try it, right? They were already primed for failure, so they didn't try it. A place to block out noise, a good cry, okay? Especially some of our teen girls, okay? A good cry really can work. Whoops. Hold on. Exercise and good nutrition are really important. Doing mindfulness activities together. There's an app on the phone. It's called Smiling Mind. It's an Australian app. It's great. I really like it. They have different age ranges, okay, and they do 7-minute, 5-minute meditations. So the glowing bubble. You have a sailboat one. You have to watch your belly going up and down, pretending there's a boat on there, or you can actually make a boat and put it on there. So there's a ton of really cool short meditations. And so I will sometimes turn off all the lights in one of the rooms, and I'll put maybe like the twinkle lights in Point Claire. I can put that on. And one day we'll get curtains in Outremont, but you can do it I've even done it with the LED ones in the storage room if we needed a quiet, dark place. That's okay. And we'll listen to one of the mindfulness together. It's awesome. And they can do it at home, right, as a follow-up. Doing art activities together. So I've had kids request to do an art activity. I'm like, okay. So we do the art activity, and then I just kind of talk. Like, oh, I find it so relaxing when we do this, or when I color, or that kind of stuff. Music and movement are really big, and we'll talk about music stuff another time. Using self-talk, so encouraging them to talk to themselves in their head, being positive, and training the brain to act instead of react. And that's just another language thing, right? Where we talk about it and get them to do something when they're green into the yellow versus reacting and being in the red zone right away. Time check. Ooh, yeah. Success, guys. The end. And here's a whole bunch of other resources. Okay, Dan Siegel is one of my, he's awesome. Dan Siegel is really good. He writes a lot of books on mindful parenting, the whole brain child, those kind of things, which are really great. So these are just different videos that you guys can watch that are helpful. They talk about it, introduce ideas, giving these resources to parents too, right? Because a lot of parents don't really get the idea of self-regulation. They often aren't regulated themselves, which is sucky. You good, guys?
Yeah.
It's a lot of
Any
stuff.
chance you can send the PowerPoint along, or do you want me to send you an email as well?
Yes, I would love to have an email reminder.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
I do well with those, mostly. Okay, perfect. Screen sharing has stopped. So that's self-regulation. It took us 3 sessions to get through self-regulation. It's a big topic, but it's super logical once you get it and once you see it in practice a few times. Sound good, guys? I'm going to let you guys take a little break before our team meeting. Me too. We'll all go get ready. And then I'm pretty sure that they sent up this thing, so I'll see you guys in 10 minutes. Sound good?
So much.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
I didn't ask any questions about what we talked about today. I should ask that.
Not yet.
Okay, maybe tomorrow. Bye, guys. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.